suficiente del pasado de misterio. Muy buenos días. Me imagino que ya saben que esto ya va para lo largo, así que vamos a continuar con lo que estamos haciendo. Y como ven, miren, me peiné. Well, not really, pero I am. Okay, so we're going to continue on. This is the next chapter. So I believe this is chapter 9. If the Shoe Fits, Breaking Through by Francisco Jimenez. Let's get started. I need my glasses first. So no, no, no. Okay. The class in which I thought it would be the easiest to get a good grade, PE, turned out to be one of the hardest. I was preparing for the physical fitness test at the end of the quarter, doing push ups, sit ups, and chin ups, and climbing ropes, running sprints, and lifting weights. I was doing fine until that day it happened. I was running a few minutes late that morning. When I got to the locker room, my classmates were already getting dressed in their gym clothes. I was in such a hurry that the foul smell of dirty socks and sweaty t-shirts did not bother me. I rushed to my locker, elbowing my way through, and began opening the combination lock with one hand and unbuttoning my shirt with the other. I unhooked the lock, flung the door open, quickly grabbed my gym clothes, and discovered my tennis shoes were missing. I checked inside again. Nothing. I put on my shorts and my t-shirt and ran outside and lined up with the rest of my class. The coach blew his whistle. "You're late," he shouted, looking me up and down. "Why aren't you wearing your tennis shoes?" "I couldn't find them, coach," I responded, holding back my tears. "They're gone from my locker." "Well, you'd better find them. It'll cost you 5 points each time you don't suit up completely." At the end of the period, I checked in my locker again and looked all around the locker room. I was out of luck. I did not even enjoy taking a shower that day or going to classes. When I got home that evening after work, I told Mama and Papa about it. "Maybe you didn't put them back in your locker," Mama said. "No, I'm sure I did." "Maybe you didn't and someone picked them up," Roberto said. "Did you check the lost and found?" "Yes, I checked everywhere." "Well, if you can't find them, we'll have to buy you a new pair," Mama said. "But it won't be until the end of the week, when Roberto gets paid," Papa added, biting his lower lip. My heart sank. There goes my grade, I thought. I went outside, stood underneath the pepper tree next to the outhouse, and cried silently. I did not suit up for PE for the next few days. Then, one evening, when Roberto and I got home from work, Trampita and Torito ran up to me. Trampita was snickering and hiding something behind his back. "Look what we got," he exclaimed, dangling a pair of worn and soiled tennis shoes in front of me. "We found them in the dump," Torito said proudly. I excitedly tried them on, turning my head away from them to avoid the foul smell. "They're too big," I said, disappointed. "Try them on with 2 pairs of socks," Mama said. "They'll fit better." I went to the dresser and pulled out the thickest pair of socks I could find and put them on. I slipped them on the tennis shoes and placed around the kitchen. "They're still a bit loose, but they feel better," I said. Trapinta and Torito's eyes lit up. I soaked an old rag in a pot of hot water and scrubbed them. The steam made the smell worse, and when I finished, they were more gray than white. I placed them outside on the stairs overnight to dry and air out. The next morning at PE, I lined up for roll call, fully dressed, and happy not to lose 5 more points. A few days later, my feet began to itch. I told the coach, and he said I might have athlete's foot. I thought it was a compliment until I found out what it really meant. I took off the 2 layers of socks, and I noticed I had cracked, blistered, and peeling areas between my toes. This lasted a long time, even after I got a new pair of tennis shoes. I ended up getting a C in PE at mid-semester. Okay, continuar con el siguiente. Okay? So we're going to go on to the next chapter since that was a shorter one. A promotion. During the fall, Papa's depression got worse. Work in the fields was scarce, and when he finally found a job thinning lettuce, he lasted only a few days because of his back pain. He wore a wide belt for support, and when he could no longer stoop over, he worked on his knees until his back gave out completely. The pay from Roberto's part-time janitorial job and our earnings from working in the fields on weekends were not enough to get us through. Roberto got paid twice a month, and every other week, Mama had to cut back on groceries. Once in a while, Papa did some light work for Bonetti, the owner of the ranch, to help pay the rent. But as time passed, we fell further and further behind on monthly payments. It's a disgrace not paying the rent on time, Papa said one evening as he opened our empty metal box. It's a shame. He banged his fist on the kitchen table. A glass flew off, hit the floor, and broke. Trapita and Dorito got scared and ran out of the house. Calm down, viejo, Mama said. Looking worried, she dried her hands on her apron and placed them on Papa's shoulders. How can I, he said, shrugging her hands away. This life is for the dogs. No, it's worse. Dogs can at least seek out their food. I can't even do that. He slowly got up from the table and hobbled to his room. Mama gave us a pained look, shook her head, and followed him, trying to console him. I have to get an extra job, Roberto said, slumping in his chair and lowering his head. I don't know what else to do. Can't you get Papa a job where you work? I asked. I could help you both after school. I've already tried. Mr. Sims told me they already have a full-time janitor and me. As usual, at the end of the day, Roberto and I met in the parking lot and headed for Main Street Elementary School. We drove down Broadway, passing students who filled the sidewalks like colorful ants in a parade. A few couples strolled holding their hands, talking and laughing. As we turned the corner onto Main Street, Roberto made a sharp turn and parked next to an old, beat-up yellow van that had Santa Maria window cleaner sign on its panels. I've seen that guy before, Roberto said, pointing to a man who had just finished washing the outside windows of Crest, the five and dime store. The man tucked the squeegee and camel in his back pant pocket, picked up the bucket and brush, and headed towards the van. He was a short, stocky man, dressed in khaki pants and a short-sleeved shirt, half tucked in. Hi, my brother said nervously as the man loaded the equipment in the back of his truck. My name is Roberto. I'm Mike Neville, the man said in a deep, raspy voice. I was wondering, do you need any help? Roberto asked. The man spat on the curb and adjusted his soiled pants. You mean, am I hiring? I could use someone on a part-time basis. Do you have any experience? Oh, it's not for me, Roberto responded. It's for my dad. He needs a job. Has he done janitorial work? No, but he is a good worker, Roberto said proudly. Well, I'll have to meet him and talk to him. He doesn't speak English, I said, only Spanish. Can't use him. In this business, I need someone who can speak English and with experience. What about you? He said, pointing at Roberto. My brother already has a job, I said. I have experience. I've been helping him clean Main Street School. You're too young, son, he said, looking at me up and down and chuckling. He then turned to Roberto and continued, So you have experience at Main Street School. I'm a janitor there part-time, Roberto said. What about weekends? Do you work there on weekends? No, just weekdays. What about working for me on weekends? I can pay you $1.25 an hour. Sure, Roberto responded immediately. What about me? I asked. I can work with him. You can help him if you want, but I can't pay you. When he saw our long faces, he quickly added, "Okay, if he works out, I'll pay him, but only if he works out." "I'll work out," I said confidently. For the next 4 weekends, Roberto and I worked with Mike Neville, cleaning offices and washing windows. The first day, Mike worked closely with us, showing us what to clean and observed how well we worked. Roberto showed me how to use the 20-inch floor scrubbing machine. I had a hard time learning to control it. Luckily, the machine had a rubber strip around the base, and every time I bumped into a baseboard, the machine bounced back, giving me a slight jolt in protest. Eventually, Mike Neville let Roberto and me do the work by ourselves. Every Saturday and Sunday, my brother and I drove to Mike Neville's house on West Donovan to pick up the keys and the truck. One Saturday evening, when we returned the van, Mike Neville invited us in. He introduced us to his wife, a friendly, petite woman who also had a raspy voice. Roberto and I sat on a large couch across from Mike, who sat on a reclining chair. His wife sat on a matching sofa chair next to him and smoked a cigarette. "How are things going?" Mike asked, lighting a half-smoked cigar. "Fine," we responded at the same time. Roberto reached into his pocket and took out a ring full of keys and handed them to Mike. "No, you keep them," Mike said. "I have an extra set." Roberto and I looked at each other and smiled. Mike brought his reclining chair to a sitting position, took a puff, and said to me, "I'm getting too old and tired of working evenings during the week. How would you like to take over for me? I'll pay you $1 an hour." "Sure," I blurted out excitedly. "You'll be cleaning a few of the same places you and Roberto have been cleaning on weekends. The gas company, the savings and loans, and Betty's Fabrics every day, and Twitchell and Twitchell's law office once a week on Wednesdays. You won't have to strip and wax the floors or wash the windows. You'll continue doing that on weekends." Roberto and I thanked him and went home excited. Papa will be proud of us, I thought. Papa was happy when Roberto and I told him about my new job, but his good mood did not last long. That Saturday night, he got angry with Roberto and me because we came home from the movies past midnight. "Don't think just because you give me your paychecks that you can do whatever you want," he said firmly. "But we're only a few minutes late," I said, recalling the discussion we had in Mrs. Taylor's class about the film in which the boy argues with his father. "Don't you dare talk back," he said, raising his voice. "I am still the man in charge of this house. You must obey and respect me, or else." Roberto and I went to our room, said our prayers, and went to bed. As I lay in bed, I thought how lucky I was to be going to school and to have a job. I did not enjoy being at home when Papa was in a bad mood. All day Monday, I was excited to start my new job. After my last class, I went to the public library on Broadway and worked on my homework. I did my math first because I liked it best. At 5 o'clock, when the offices closed, I walked a few more blocks to the gas company, which was on West Main Street. It was a huge building with a front office that connected to a large back structure 2 stories high. As I opened the door to the rear entrance, a draft of warm air hit my face. It felt safe and comfortable. I went to the janitor's room, picked up the cleaning cart, and began cleaning the offices on the first floor. I emptied the wastebaskets, feather dusted the desks, which were piled with scattered papers. They looked like my high school counselor's desk. I wiped the ashtrays with a wet rag and straightened the papers. I then went upstairs to the second floor. It was one large room like the auditorium. In front of the room was a full kitchen. Above the stove was a mirror, angled so that people sitting in the audience could view the top of the range. A plate of cookies sat on the counter with a handwritten note that read, "Please help yourself." The following day, the plate of cookies was still there. No one had touched them. By the end of the week, someone had changed the note. It read, "Janitor, please help yourself." After I finished cleaning the bathrooms and dust mopping the floors, I took a handful of cookies and went downstairs. I sat in one of the desks to do my homework. I read the first 2 chapters in my English text, Myths and Their Meanings. I had a hard time understanding them. I put the book down, ate more cookies, and wondered what the person who sat at this desk did all day. It must be neat to work in an office, I thought. I noticed a picture frame partially hidden behind a pile of folders, and I picked it up. It was a color photograph of a boy dressed in a football uniform and a man standing next to him, smiling proudly with his arm around the boy. I figured it was the boy's father. I placed the photo in front of the pile of papers and reread the first chapter until Roberto came by to pick me up to go home. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there for this. Como siempre, si tienen preguntas, favor, háganme las preguntas en el message board que tenemos o aquí mismo. Juan, por favor, quiero que estés leyendo. Si Esme, Fanny, si tienen preguntas, por favor, háganme las preguntas. Ya saben, siempre estoy disponible. Así que nos vemos a ratito.